Very much. And coming up, Republicans are one step closer to changing the tax code as we know it. That's next. Last night on Saturday Night Live, Donald Trump had a Christmas tree decorating party. I messed that all up.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Mr. President. And for my ornaments, I brought Sean Spicer and Anthony Scaramucci, whose mangled corpses I stepped over to get this job.
Donald, you heard that noise out on the lawn?
Could it be Santa? Or the Rapture?
Or even worse, it's Omarosa.
Father, my ornament shows the other people we lost this year. Reince Priebus, Tom Price, Sebastian Gorka, Preet Bharara, Cotter Page, Sally Yates, Paul Manafort, and George Papadopoulos.
I made a macaroni star.
Wait a second. Did you hear that? It's the theme from NBC's The Apprentice.
Yes, but where is it coming from?
Oh, dear God. Omarosa's back.
Take me back! I'll always love you back!
You have no doubts that Congress will pass it this week.
I have no doubt. This has been a terrific process with the House and Senate working together in conference, and there's a terrific bill that's going to get to the president to sign.
That's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin feeling very confident about what could be Republicans' first major legislative victory of 2017, a sweeping tax reform plan. Actually, really more of a corporate tax cut plan. Many elements of the plan are still under fire, including the expiration date on tax cuts for the middle class, while corporations get a permanent tax cut to 21%. Joining me now, MSNBC contributor E.J. Dionne, Jimmy Williams, host of Decode DC podcast, Jamal Simmons, Democratic strategist, and Caton Dawson, Republican strategist. Let's start with E.J. and let's listen to a little bit more of Steve Mnuchin, this time on CNN, and he's talking about his favorite thing, the tax cuts.
This is the biggest single change to the tax system in fixing a broken tax code that we've ever had. A family of four making $75,000 will get about a $2,000 tax cut, and a family of four making $150,000 will get almost $4,000. Plus, we think as a result of lowering business taxes, wages will go up. So this is a huge opportunity for creating jobs, creating tax cuts for working families.
So, E.J., aside from the fact that there's literally no evidence, literally none, that cutting taxes on corporations increases wages, setting that aside, I found it interesting, and I'm wondering if you do, that when Steve Mnuchin starts talking about the tax cuts, his baseline, he starts talking about a family of four making $75,000, and he goes up from there. I had my producers check. The median household income in America is $56,000. So even his frame of reference is $20,000 more than the median household income.
No, I think that's right. And as somebody at the New Yorker pointed out, this is like a teaser rate mortgage because those middle-class tax cuts disappear down the road. They couldn't fit them in because of that huge corporate cut. I mean, this is one of the worst pieces of legislation I've seen around here, and I've been around a while. I mean, the first thing is that this bill proves conclusively that Donald Trump is no populist. This bill is about as populist as an all-male country club with a $1 million initiation fee. Second, it's political punishment using government power to go against the opposition states, against blue states, with what it does to the state and local tax deductions. It's one of the most recklessly put together bills that we've ever seen. There are provisions in here that only the lobbyists who wrote them or inspired them understand. It's going to explode the deficit, and it's not going to do for the economy any of the things they claim. It's a truly awful bill.
Yeah, and Jimmy Williams, you've worked on the Hill as Senate staff. It also violates some of the claimed priorities of senators who are now supporting the bill. I remember lots of talk about regular order from John McCain and talking about doing things the proper way. Well, here's Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, talking about the process on Meet the Press.
I think Mitch McConnell basically told the president we can do this under a budget reconciliation, which is a budget gimmick. He passed a budget with $1.5 trillion of deficit going in. So he had $1.5 trillion of deficit to work with in giveaways, tax cuts, and everything else rather than revenue neutral, which is what Ronald Reagan did, which is what Bowles and Simpson did, which is what I wanted to do and many Republicans kind of wanted to do, I thought, but that's not what we ended up with.
I mean, Jimmy, it's just at this point just true that the Republicans do not care about deficits, do not care about debt. They just care about tax cuts for very wealthy people. Is that unfair for me to say?
I think that's fair. And let's be very clear. The deficit isn't a new thing. The Republicans have, look, Mitch McConnell's been in the Senate since 1984. I'm pretty sure we've had a deficit almost all of that time. So it doesn't Mitch McConnell own deficit spending as much as anybody else has been in the Senate? So no, Republicans have never cared about deficits. It's a wonderful talking point, and I get the talking point. I was around in 2001 for that tax bill. I was on the floor. I worked that bill. We had a surplus at that point in time. And that bill, Joy, was supposed to give us more of a surplus, was supposed to give us more jobs, et cetera, et cetera. It did not. It failed. Even the 1986 tax bill was revenue neutral. They couldn't even do that in 2001, and they're not doing it this time. $1.56 trillion added to the deficit. Now, hold on. All of our Republican friends are going to say, well, Barack Obama doubled the deficit. Great. Mazel tov. Guess what? Barack Obama is not the president of the United States anymore. Donald Trump is, a man who's declared bankruptcy 6 times in the Commonwealth of New York. So, yes, they love deficit spending. They're going to add to the deficit. It's not going to create jobs. It's going to devastate, just like the 1986 tax bill did, the housing industry. It's going to cause interest rates to go up. Banks aren't going to loan, and people are going to suffer. Oh, and by the way, it raises taxes on about 3.5% of Americans who are poor. Poor. Now think about that. Republicans making a corporate tax rate permanent and screwing poor people. That is one hell of a Christmas gift.
Yeah, and Jamal, you know, there's a reason why Steve Mnuchin started his baseline at $75,000, because it's under $75,000 that people are getting a tax hike. Those are the people that are going to pay for the permanent corporate tax cut and for the tax cut for very wealthy people. I think at $1 million is when you really get your real tax cut. But they're also doing this in a way that they themselves claim the Democrats were wrong and should not vote on health care, which was expanding health care, until the new senator from Massachusetts could be seated. But here's an ad that an opposition group is running that is making the point that Doug Jones, who just won that seat in Alabama, is not going to be allowed to vote on this. Take a look at this ad.
The voters have spoken, but Mitch McConnell is trying to overrule the voters by jamming through the Republican tax plan before Alabama's new senator can vote. It's not right, and Mitch knows it. Last time this happened, when a Republican won a special election, McConnell stopped all votes until that senator was seated.
Winner, whoever it is, should be sworn in promptly. Let's honor the wishes of the people.
Call Senator McConnell. Tell him he should honor the wishes of the people now, too.
Is that an effective message? It's about a 6-figure buy, my understanding is, Jamal.
Yeah, you know, we'll see whether or not people in the country get fired up about this. I think what they mostly get fired up is not about the process of what happened, but what the result is going to be for themselves, for real taxpayers. And I look at this, this is like a Thelma and Louise kind of a tax plan. It's like it's going to be a really good, fun time until the point where we go off the cliff and they kind of take the American economy into this ditch that it is we're all going to be facing. 2025, we're going to see tax rates go back up on individuals because they were more concerned with making them permanent for corporations than they were with making them permanent for American employees and you know, people at the lower end of the economic scale. This bill does not address any of the fundamental problems that we have. How do we lower the inequality divide? How do we rebuild our infrastructure? How do we deal with the cultural changes that are happening and make sure that women and people of color get paid the same as white men so that we can continue to support our economy and support our entitlements? And when we're done with all this, when they get done with this on Tuesday, if they vote for it, we're going to go back and we're going to see Medicare be put back on the table, and we may have Medicare cuts. That is not what people voted for, and I think the Republicans are again driving us over this cliff, Thelma and Louise style. It's going to be a great party right up until the crash.
Well, Jamal, you went and used one of those forbidden words, entitlements. We're not allowed to use that word. It's forbidden. Let's go to you, right, Kate and Dawson, because we didn't get a chance. Doug Jones is not going to get to speak on this tax bill because Mitch McConnell won't let him. He's essentially holding that seat hostage the way he did that SCOTUS seat. But here is Doug Jones talking on Fox News earlier about the tax bill.
This just seems to be done, plopped into a vote too quickly. There's things I like about it, cutting corporate tax rates, cutting some things for the middle class, and increasing the standard deduction. But my biggest concern is at the process, and also the fact that it's going to increase the deficit by over $1 trillion. That causes me great concern. I don't buy into the fact that it's going to grow the economy such that that $1 trillion debt will get wiped out. I think that's a major problem.
You know, Caden, he sounds like what Republicans used to sound like, caring about fiscal probity, caring about the deficit. He says he doesn't see this as growing the economy. How does your party go forward as the party that explodes the deficit so that rich people can get a permanent tax cut and people who make less than $75,000 a year can pay for it?
Well, first of all, Doug Jones is going to have one of the shortest tenures in the United States Senate ever, because there's no way
Sounding like that,
Alabama's
he sounds like a pretty
re-elect
solid
him.
guy.
Yeah, it won't matter. It won't matter, and we're glad to have Doug Jones there, and when he votes, that would matter on this. What I will say is I think most everybody this morning is wrong. I've lived through the '86 and saw what it did to a C Corp that I was involved with. It was started by my grandfather, who had an 8th grade education. I understand what the tax code's going to do and what it's going to do politically. And politically, 69% of America does not itemize their deductions, and they're going to get they're going to double their individual deduction and double the marriage deduction.
Then why is it so unpopular?
So politically,
why is it so unpopular? It's incredibly unpopular.
It's unpopular. It's unpopular because if you look at the polling, it's hard to understand until you see it. But when you do your taxes in 2019, your 2018 taxes for 2019, that's when it's going to show up. That's what we're going to see. Now, we've got the 2018 midterms coming. And again, it looks like the Democratic Party is against lowering any kind of taxes, and everybody's defining the rich as really bad people, corporations as really bad people. Well, let me finish first. Let me finish, TJ.
Quickly.
So at the end of the day, while we've had the time from everybody else, I'll take mine and tell you that it's going to create a competitive job system. It is going to raise wages, and it's going to give people more take-home pay. That's what's going to happen. Now, the politics will work themselves out for 2018. And Donald Trump's up in 2020. So we'll see, but I'm glad to see that the Democratic Party is now concerned about deficit spending. Well, I'm glad to see that people are talking about the $1.5 trillion, that it might explode. But you know what? If you keep doing it the way we've been doing it through the Bush administration and the Obama administration,
you get growth because we had great growth during Obama.
It's time something different.
We're out of time. I wish we had more time because I'd love to go back around one more time around the horn, but we do not have any more time. E.J. Dion, Jimmy Williams, Jamal Simmons, Caden Dawson.